The fashion industry, which is today a multi-trillion dollar business in the world, is understood as part of a cultural and social history. It cannot be separated from our daily lives. In Nigeria, a fashion statement is not fashion for fashion's sake. It is not to look good alone, but to speak, to show and hear Africa. It captures the temperament, elements, and philosophy of the people, as well as their heritage. Ade Bakare, an international fashion designer with over 20 years experience, gives an insight into history.
Fashion in Nigeria in the 70s and 80s, I think was a lot of it was focused on West. I think we just gained independence. So before then, yes, there's a lot of emphasis on what was Nigerian. A lot of ladies then wore Ankara dresses, even Adire was very, very popular. But gradually, I think during the oil boom, during the 70s, when the economy started expanding, people then, their focus shifted. It became more sort of Western. People then bought what they call ready-to-wear, which basically meant things made abroad, which were basically finished. They didn't have to go to the tailors. So you saw a lot of that. There was still a small circle of people and designers that imbibed things that were Nigerian and African, but it wasn't as popular. So gradually through the 70s, and even the 80s was even worse, then it really became, the focus was totally Western, except perhaps people had traditional activities, and then they'd go to their traditional costumes. But the focus was very Western. And gradually now that has changed. People are now looking inwards, and which is a positive thing.
Nigeria started late in exposing its designers internationally, whereas the African fashion industry has come of age after several years of evolving from Western fashion to a leading inspiration in world fashion trends.
I think things started changing, especially it started, I think, with the music industry first. There was an emergence of a lot of Nigerian singers, and not just the emergence of them, there was an acceptance. So because we had it in the 70s and 80s, but it wasn't very sort of popular, and because the focus was sort of very Western, people were not actually focused on what the artists were doing here. But then during sort of past decades, what you found is that a lot of people, Nigerians, are beginning to embrace their own. I think it happened first with the fashion industry. There were a lot of emerging singers, and people were buying their music, inviting them to parties to come and sing. And so that, I think, then went on into the fashion industry. It now became that, okay, we are embracing our own in the music industry. Music and fashion are quite related, even with the arts. So basically you started getting a lot of designers in Nigeria. Some trained abroad, some trained here. But the great emphasis was that they were now making clothes that are reflective of the people. So this is Adire. I felt to modernize it would be nice to do it on silk, because everybody knows Adire, but we associate it with cotton. At times it can be quite stiff, but for ladies it always has to be sort of light and feminine. So we decided to do like the Nigerian silk. So this was done in Nigeria, and so we mixed it with a plain skirt, and it's got my signature sleeves there. But I feel it's modern. I feel it's where fashion in Nigeria should be going at the moment, and that's what I meant by subtle references. It doesn't mean you have to do a buba and wrapper to make it African. When you look at the African woman, she's a bit different from the Western woman. She's more fuller, and so the designs in the West don't always complement the African woman. But what the Nigerian designers started doing was to create clothes that would complement, sort of the Nigerian woman, and which is what we imbibed when we opened the shop here. Because initially, I was being asked to design a lot of evening wear, wedding dresses, which have a very Western influence. But when we opened the shop and I set up my ready-to-wear line, I then started imbibing that in the collection, using Ankara, using Nigeria, using, African fabrics. A lot of ladies like this. I guess because of the sleeveless, it's always quite unique in Nigeria. But it's beautiful because it's actually this was influenced by the fashion in the 1950s and 1960s. The ladies then used to wear a lot of short dresses that had full skirts, and so this was influenced by that. So we've just added the organza, sash, and panel. That's for modernity. To make it look modern. But it's got a full skirt. If she turns around, you see the way it swings. Just swing there. And just hold her skirt. Yes. And turn around. It's like a full skirt. And it's in Ankara. Very popular.